Hello students, this is Anubhav Mathur from the Northern Regional Campus of the Indian Institute of Mass Communication IIMC situated at Jammu, J&K. I am a media professional and a media teacher of more than 18 years of standing and specialize in statistics, research methodology, television studies and new media. I also write and review research papers on a variety of subjects including television, new media and artificial intelligence. In this session, we will be looking at the basics of photography and some aspects of photojournalism. We will learn about the basics of a still camera and techniques of composition and design. We will also look at the ethics related to photojournalism. So, let us start the session. The objectives of this chapter are to understand the concept of visual design, to understand the guiding principles of composition, to understand photojournalism and its importance. Introduction. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Photography is a medium which conveys thoughts and feelings without saying a word. In fact, a photograph can speak louder than words and the message will be clear and with little noise. Photography as a medium of communication is easy to comprehend by mass audiences as the encoding is quite easy. The encoding in news photography has to be easy so that maximum number of people can understand the message and the photograph serves the desired purpose. Photographs are representations of time and event, light and shadows and contrasts of vibrant colors. A good photograph speaks to our emotions as well as to the thoughts and emotions of others. Photos allow us to express our own feelings in a unique way. The photo could be a portrait that shows an important day in a person's life and captures him in a certain mood. In a way, a photograph captures the same world where we all live. The background of a portrait could be mountains, desert or any scenic beauty. It depicts different points of reality through a much larger canvas. A photograph transfers the viewer to the place and time shown in the photograph. Photojournalism. Photojournalism is an effective way of telling stories and disseminating information to a diverse group of people. It gives visual support to a news story. These tools are even being used by the news organizations to disseminate news. YouTube provides space to people and organizations so that they can start their own channels where viewers can come and see the videos on a variety of subjects. Photographs paint real pictures of news, events and varied human activities. A good photograph should try to answer maximum number of W's and H. For example, a photo that shows a family of 4 begging for food and money to buy it tells a clearer story than a single person begging for food. A good news photo tells a story on its own and requires little to no writing to back it up. Social media tools like Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, WhatsApp have made it really convenient for people to share photos and videos. Photos taken with the right focus, exposure, angle and color are understood better by larger audience as compared to the photos in which the subject is not in the focus and which lack proper camera angle. The main objective of photojournalism is to tell a story better than the text or write-up that usually accompanies the photos. Therefore, it should capture images that have a relevance and specific meaning to the story being told. For example, a story on Virat Kohli breaking Sachin Tendulkar's world record becomes more effective if it's accompanied by a photo showing him being congratulated by his teammates and being cheered by the crowd. Photojournalism covers latest national and international news developments which are of public interest. Increasing importance of photojournalism. Photojournalism is the right field for a creative person who has an eye for detail and loves to travel. One who likes meeting people and is prepared to work for longer hours in difficult situations can do well as a photojournalist. There are lots of job opportunities for a photojournalist. Websites, news portals, news magazines, TV channels and newspapers are looking for dedicated and efficient camera persons. Photojournalism is the process of telling stories using photos as the medium. It uses a camera to capture visual representations of a story. Photojournalism follows a set frame of rules and principles for composition. The stories told using photos are supposedly true and thus should be communicated in a fair and unbiased way. In photojournalism, the news photos often evoke intense emotions in viewers, like shots of disaster survivors or scenes of a terrorist attack. It is used extensively in newspapers, news magazines, film magazines and advertising magazines. Photographs in the form of selfies, cell phone snaps, unplanned photos and anytime random shots have flooded the social media and internet with visuals. Anybody can become a photographer and with the help of a good camera and software can do wonders. This massive production of images in the digital form is undermining photojournalism and the importance it once enjoyed. Camera. A camera is a device for recording visual images which may be in the form of pictures or videos. Camera is only a tool. A camera person has to master photographic technique. The most important thing is to think of the best way to carry a visual related to the story for the audience. For this, a photojournalist should be able to mentally visualize the shots he wants to show and then plan accordingly. This is achieved by taking the shots from a proper perspective. A good photojournalist will think about the right angle, content of the frame and the content he wants the audience to focus on. A good photograph can be a powerful agent for change. Different journalists and photographers approach news stories differently. They capture different aspects of life of masses to highlight their plight and suffering in order to attract the attention of authorities towards basic issues. By publishing the pictures of pending projects and unfinished tasks, they remind agencies and also the public to discharge their responsibility. For example, by publishing pictures of garbage and piles of waste, the photojournalist reminds the citizens of their duty towards maintaining a clean environment which is free of dirt and diseases. Good camera work focuses on the relevant parts of a story which are important for storytelling. The relevant visual parts are photographed in a manner which builds an emotional connect with the audience. This photograph with the emotional appeal is liked by the audience and they remember it for long. While doing his camera work, a photojournalist needs to be sensitive towards the feelings of other human beings. Right specifications of focal length, exposure and ISO can bring good results even with an old camera. The specifications depend on whether the photography is done outdoor or indoor. The time of the day also affects the quality of the picture. Source of light and the temperature of artificial lights also affect the final picture. A keen study of these parameters will enable a photojournalist to plan his camera work well. Composition and aesthetic value. Composition can be defined as the arrangement of objects within an image frame. A photo with good composition and proper values of exposure, contrast and ISO looks pleasing. Good composition directs the eyes of the viewer. A picture with good composition is easy to understand and appreciate. A photojournalist can plan a good composition after seeing the subject matter of the story. Good composition is achieved through the contrast of size and color, contrast of shape, through patterns, rhythm, distribution of subjects and props in different planes, that is the foreground, middle ground and the background. This is achieved by using a wide angle lens which provides good depth of field. Contrast of light can also highlight the key components in the frame and hide components which are not required for the story. Bright light can direct the attention of a viewer and help him to understand the crux of the visual image. A good photograph with right composition will hold together and will not divide the attention of the viewer. Composition can be learned by practice and the rules are just guiding principles. These rules are not sacrosanct and can always be bypassed. Good photos convey key points of a story faster than its accompanying text. The photos should focus on the faces of the people and not on their backs. A good photo will show a person doing some action or group of people involved in some activity. Any unusual photograph showing a new phenomena, emotion or extraordinary act may qualify as a good photograph. Subject has to be in focus and the audience should be able to find the key area to focus on in the frame. For instance, after a heavy snowfall, the focus of one picture can be on the sufferings of the people living in that area and the other picture can be on the scale of the snowfall. A photograph through right composition and proper visualization has to convey the right message, one that should be able to tell the audience where to look in the photo. This sort of work needs careful planning and execution. Always take note of the angle of the shots and position of the camera before taking the pictures. Experienced photographers often take multiple shots from different perspectives. This process is quite easy with digital cameras. Digital single reflex lens camera DSLR manufactured by Nikon, Canon, Sony, Fuji, etc. support memory cards as high as 128 GB or so. A skillful and creative person with knowledge of visual aesthetics can utilize the full potential of a digital camera. Simply pointing and shooting the camera without using the controls is not photojournalism or even photography. It is the skill of the person behind the camera that produces award-winning pictures. Photographers follow certain principles to produce photos that catch the attention of the audience. Balance. Balance is achieved by using negative and positive space in a skillful manner. Negative space also carries weight just like positive space. The imaginary line or the axis in a photograph or a frame creates asymmetric or symmetric balance. This symmetric or asymmetric balance can be in a landscape or a portrait orientation. The photograph can have balance through radial symmetry also. If all the components in the photograph are weighted and placed equally around that point in a photograph, radial symmetry is achieved. In asymmetrical balance, the elements on one side of the frame are more in weight than the other side of the frame and one half of the frame of the image is not the mirror of the other half. In symmetrical balance, the elements on one side of the frame are almost similar in weight to the other side. One side of the image can be the mirror image of the other half. The photographer should have the understanding of weight and gravity so that the photograph gives an appealing look. Proportion. Proportion refers to the size and scale of the components of a photograph in relation to the other components or the entire frame of the photograph. A large fish is not in proportion to a small boat, short-heighted fisherman or a very small container. Right proportion is achieved by understanding standard measurements and relative size of the components in the photograph. Geometrical tools, rulers and grid sheets are used to sketch elements as per the required proportion. Correct proportion of components makes composition pleasing and communicates the message clearly. Varied proposition of components in a photograph makes the message unclear and the viewer is unable to understand the message clearly. Cartoons, illustrations, caricatures use improper proportions of components on purpose to make the message more effective. Harmony. Harmony should be the objective of every photograph. Harmony means that the different elements of the photograph should gel together nicely so as to give a pleasing look of the entire composition. Harmony can be achieved by the use of right color, compositions, combinations, shapes, relative sizes and contrast. The elements in different planes of the frame should also gel with each other. Harmony is difficult to achieve in all photographs as different genre and subjects, as there are limitations while covering news. Harmony can be enhanced through unity. Contrast. Human eye is quick to notice a contrast in color, shape, tone, size, texture. Contrast is achieved by putting components with opposite or dissimilar features together in the frame. The components of a photograph can have contrast in color, shape, tone, form. Contrast creates depth and helps in eye movement. A tall structure in a village with hut provides contrast. The color of the roof of the huts and its texture, its shape can be in contrast with the building, its color, texture and outer appearance. Contrast can be on the same plane or in different planes within the frame. When contrast is created in different planes, it creates depth and space in the composition. Contrast in color and shape gives direction and motion to the photograph. Rhythm. Rhythm is the repetition of patterns in the photograph. The wooden planks of a same size and color in a garden fence creates a pattern which is seen as rhythm. Rhythm is created since the shape, size, color and texture of the wooden planks is repeated throughout the length of the fence. This sort of repetition catches human attention and makes rhythm an important element of composition. The rows of pine trees in a forest, the fleet of sailors, the roofs of the huts covered with snow can be composed in a photograph to highlight the rhythm. Rule of one-third. Rule of one-third says that to create a pleasing composition, the subject of the photograph or the action to be captured should be placed at one of the 4 points of intersection of lines. This rule can be applied to all subjects and genres of a photograph. The 4 points of intersection as mentioned above are obtained by dividing the frame vertically and horizontally in 3 equal parts. The 2 vertical and 2 horizontal straight lines intersect at 4 points. These 4 points are where the subject or the focus of the photograph should be placed to create pleasing and interesting composition. This rule of one-third can be used for both landscape and portrait composition. Therefore, simply putting the subject in the center of the frame of the photograph is not a good idea. Negative space. The area in the frame of the photograph where the subject or the action is not present is called as negative space. Proper use of negative space increases the effect of composition and at the same time makes the message stronger. Just like positive space, which shows the subject and the action, negative space is also equally important and should be used judiciously. Negative space is also called as empty space. Some of the advertisements have become memorable because they included a larger proportion of negative space as compared to positive space. Cut line. The words used to describe a photograph is called a cut line. Cut lines are not the same as captions, although a lot of people consider them to be the same. A photograph conveys a story visually by covering a slice of time, a particular moment without knowing its past and future. Cut line and captions should be crisp and clear like headlines. They should be informative and readable. The reader of a newspaper or a magazine looks at the photograph and tries to grasp all the visual information in the photograph. The readers identify people in the photograph from left to right and try to understand the event by looking at the time and place of the event. For more information and sometimes to confirm their understanding of the photograph and the news behind it, a reader reads the caption and then the cut lines. Cut lines should provide additional information which the photograph has not given. For example, the photograph may show Virat Kohli hitting a ball in the air, but will fail to communicate whether it was a six or it was caught by the fielder at the boundary. This information is given by the cut line. Cut lines should never make assumptions about the content of the photograph. It should not repeat what has already been shown in the photograph. The facts, spelling of names, gender, etc. should be double checked before publishing the photograph with the cut lines. Finally, a cut line should be as brief as possible. Photojournalism and ethics. Photojournalism provides important information to its audience. This information has to be correct as it is important for decision making. A photojournalist has to show whether the message in the picture is for the larger interest of society. The photojournalist should also respect the privacy of a person or a family which is the subject matter of the news. Breach of privacy and selling of pictures of a private event is unethical. In a private party or a function, it is always good to seek permission before taking pictures. Manipulation is to be avoided. Reenacting of events or staging of events is seen as manipulation. Adding or deleting of images, substantial background or prose is also counted as manipulation. One has to be very careful when taking pictures of a major tragedy like earthquake or an explosion. Mutilated body parts are not to be shot and published. Human body and its parts should not be published unless there is a requirement, as in case of a health story. If the publication is for public good, then it may be photographed and published. The content of a photograph must not be altered by any means. The faces or identities of the subjects must not be altered by image editing tools like Photoshop. A lot of media organizations say that the removal of red eye from photographs is not acceptable. Photo editor should not manipulate images or add in any way that misleads the viewers. Photography is a creative process of recording pictures by means of capturing light through a camera on a light sensitive medium such as a sensor or film. Light patterns reflected from objects are recorded onto a sensitive medium or storage chip. In newspapers and magazines, a photojournalist does with photos what a reporter does with words. A good sense of aesthetics and composition are useful tools for a photojournalist. Besides using the camera, he should be computer savvy and be willing to experiment with new technology. Photographers must be well organized, practical and friendly in nature. Finally, they must have excellent communication skills and should work with an ethical frame of mind. Now, let us look at the summary of the chapter. What all have we learnt? Photography is a creative process of recording pictures by means of capturing light through a camera on a light sensitive medium such as a sensor or film. Light patterns reflected from objects are recorded onto a sensitive medium or storage chip. In newspapers and magazines, a photojournalist does with photos what a reporter does with words. A good sense of aesthetics and composition are useful tools for a photojournalist. Besides using the camera, he should be computer savvy and should be willing to experiment with new technology. Photographers have to be well organized, practical and friendly in nature. And finally, they should be receptive to new ideas and should adhere to personal and professional ethics. With this, we come to the end of the lecture. I hope you all have learned something about photography and basics of photojournalism. I welcome your suggestions and feedback. I wish you all the very best for your academic endeavors.